This student goes online to search for the easiest way to die. However, he finds an ad for a high-class taxi service with the slogan, "Don't die, take revenge. We will help you." The boy bursts into tears. He picks up the phone to contact the high-end taxi service. However, thinking that it is just a joke, he stops again. The next day, the boy struggles to go to school on one leg since the other is broken. However, when he sees the 3 bullies in the class who often bully him in school, he cannot dare to enter the classroom anymore. Instead, he turns around and leaves. When he goes to his mother's fish shop, he sees his mother working. She is both mute and deaf, and is struggling to invite customers to buy fish with her advertisement board. This scene makes the boy feel even sadder, and he no longer knew who to turn to. He decides to call the taxi service he has just found last night. The person who picks up this phone call is Sung Chul, the director of the taxi service. He immediately assigns this task to the driver. The taxi driver drives the taxi to meet the customer boy. Upon reaching, he presses the button to open the car door so the boy can get into the cab. While sitting in the taxi, the boy asks the driver where they are going. The driver immediately tells him that they are going to take revenge. Then, the boy begins narrating his tearful story to this driver. His name is Park Young-min, and he transferred to a new school a few months earlier. During break time, 3 classmates intentionally approach him, making sarcastic remarks about the persistent fishy smell around him. Responding calmly, Young-min explains that the smell was because his mother ran a fish shop. Following that incident, Young-min becomes the continual target of senseless torment from the trio. Seeking help, he approaches his new teacher. However, instead of support, he receives advice to befriend his bullies. Adding insult to injury, the teacher criticizes the fishy smell on Young-min's clothes. As Young-min leaves the encounter, he is seized by the 3 bullies, who issue threats. They force him into joining them at a karaoke spot. There, they subject him to a brutal beating, strip him of his clothes, and steal all his money. On one occasion, when Young-min has nothing to offer, the boys shove him onto the road. As he falls on the road, a guy in the group runs his bike over Young-min's leg to make it look like an accident. They did that to get compensation from insurance the next day. This time, Young-min decides to fight back. He reports the incident to the police. However, instead of solving the case, the police officer only assigns the responsibility to the school violence committee. He then tells Young-min to go home and wait for the committee to take action. Young-min returns home only to see the bullies having dinner with his mother. They have arrived to give Young-min a warning. They even threaten to stab his mother, leaving him with no other option but to stay silent. When the principal inquires about Young-min's injury in the committee meeting, he hesitates. He claims he tripped while playing, concealing the truth out of fear of the bullies. Despite his attempt to shield himself from reality, his mother senses something amiss and encourages him to speak up. However, Young-min remains tight-lipped. After the bullies apologize for playing recklessly, the principal advises Young-min against taking the matter beyond the school premises. Returning to the present, the driver hands Young-min an envelope before dropping him off at a game station. Inside, he discovers instructions detailing the game number. As Young-min starts playing, a fairy within the game explains the rules. While the company works on his request, the taxi meter keeps running. He'll settle the fare once the task is completed. Depending on the circumstances, additional charges might apply. Lastly, Young-min is requested not to disclose the taxi game to anyone else. Unable to choose what he should do, Young-min decides to leave the place. However, rethinking how the bullies mistreated him, he presses the yes button and gives his consent to take revenge. In the underground basement, the taxi service team listens to his story. Sung Chul remarks that it might not be a big case for them, but for Young-min, it is a matter of life or death. The team member, Go-eun, begins her research and learns about one of the bullies, Sun Tae. His father donates money to the school, allowing him to do whatever he wants. The photographs of the bullies are printed out, after which Sung Chul briefs his team on the project. Though the perpetrators are all minor, it doesn't make their crimes any lighter, so they must carry out the task like any other. The taxi driver, Dogi, activates his meter and heads to a restaurant, initiating the next phase of the operation. There, he intentionally grabs someone else's food and mixes something in it. The food turns out to be that of Young-min's teacher. Dogi apologizes and gives him back his platter. The teacher falls ill because of the mixture, allowing Dogi to apply to the same school as a substitute teacher. Grateful for the timely help, the principal welcomes Dogi and assigns him to teach math, a subject he's not confident in. Upon introduction to the class, Dogi starts the routine by taking attendance. As predicted, Sung-tae disrupts the class, leading with a casual remark about the pleasant weather outside. After the class, two other bullies, Hyung-sik and Hak-soo, throw empty cans at Dogi and ask him for a favor. One of them asks Dogi if he has a cigarette, to which Dogi responds how a student can ask his teacher such a question. Sung-tae intervenes and begins ridiculing Dogi, saying he is just a part-time worker, not their teacher. To teach Dogi a lesson, he slaps his friend and then starts shouting that the new teacher has hit him. Acting along, Dogi tries to calm them down. However, Sung-tae's behavior worsens, and he grabs Dogi's wallet and steals his money. With the money, the trio flees from the area, leaving Dogi frustrated. Sharing his experience with Go-eun, Dogi expresses feeling mugged. However, Go-eun playfully mocks him, highlighting that his own students mugged him. Later that day, Sung-tae orders Hak-soo to get some goodies as he plans to impress some girls. Following orders, Hak-soo approaches an elderly woman, offering money in exchange for a favor. As minors, they're unable to purchase cigarettes, so they exploit the older woman's assistance. However, instead of fulfilling their promise of payment, Hak-soo hands over his leftover ramen soup and swiftly departs. The trio heads to a club to spend time with their girlfriends. Sung-tae pulls out the stolen cigarettes, reveling in the moment. Go-eun observes their activities through a hidden camera pan installed by Dogi. Curious, Go-eun questions how they can enjoy with ill-gotten money. Dogi explains the gradual descent of seemingly ordinary teenage boys into a darker path. While the trio enjoys their time, men in black suits approach them. The leader engages with Sung-tae, who hands over a sum of cash. It is revealed that these boys are more than just bullies. The next day, the friends are smoking cigarettes in the bathroom and bullying another of their classmates. While they are threatening him for money, Dogi appears from the toilet room. He pretends to have some work with the student. When Sung-tae refuses to let the student go, Dogi reminds him that he is their teacher and they must obey him. Despite Sung-tae's reluctance, Dogi manages to take the student with him. At Sung-tae's house, the team plans to teach Dogi a lesson. Sung-tae has an idea. The next day, the friends approach the older man to buy cigarettes. Fortunately, the older man has a stash specifically for students who can't legally purchase them. After obtaining the cigarettes, Hak-soo approaches Dogi, claiming that someone's parents are waiting for him in the library. As Dogi leaves, Hak-soo covertly inserts explicit content into Dogi's bag while keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. Meanwhile, Sung-tae threatens a girl to trap Dogi. When she refuses to do that to a teacher, Sung-tae grabs her from her hair and warns her of the consequences of her disobedience. A few moments later, Dogi enters the library and begins finding the parents. However, he couldn't find anyone. Meanwhile, the girl removes her sweater and leaves the library, acting like a victim, shouting at the top of her lungs. She draws everyone's attention. When the female teacher asks what has happened to her, the girl accuses Dogi of having her nude photographs in his bag. Sung-tae is standing there laughing as he sees his plan working. The female teacher takes the girl with her, seeing Dogi as the culprit. On the other hand, the principal receives a call from an unknown number and learns about the incident. He is shocked and infuriated to hear this. While the female teacher is taking the girl to inspect Dogi's bag, she insults Dogi. She says she will ensure Dogi won't get to teach again. On his way to the teacher's room, Dogi winks at Sung-tae, adding to the complexity of the situation. Everyone is called to the classroom, where the principal rebukes Dogi for letting something wrong happen during his supervision. When asked where is Sung-tae's seat, Dogi points it out. Infuriated, the principal dashes towards Sung-tae's seat and begins unloading his bag. Inside, he finds the dirty magazines and pictures of the girl. Now, Sung-tae is portrayed as the culprit. The female teacher asks the girl what happened in the library, to which the girl responds that there was a bug in her clothes. As the teacher bursts out in rage at the girl, we see Dogi smiling at Sung-tae. A flashback shows how the magazine ended up in Sung-tae's bag. It turns out that when Hak-soo came up to Dogi to call him in the library, something happened beyond Hak-soo's imagination. His actions were being recorded by the camera pen Dogi had left on his desk. As he was putting magazine, he was being watched by Go-eun. She took matters into her own hands and entered the school wearing a uniform. Pretending to be a student, she went to the teacher's room and stole the magazine from Dogi's bag. After carefully putting that magazine in Sung-tae's bag, she called the principal and informed him about the pictures. As the truth comes out, the female teacher apologizes to Dogi, who now fake cries to gather her sympathies. After getting rebuked by the teacher and the principal, Sung Tae held his friend responsible for the incident. He accuses his friend of deliberately making a fool out of him. As he starts beating the boy, Hak-soo steps in and instructs him to calm down. However, Sung Tae gets infuriated and holds Hak-soo by the neck, warning him not to intervene in his matters. As the trio leaves the school, they witness 2 police officers finding the bag of cigarettes and arresting the older man. It turns out that the old man was selling marijuana. When questioned by the police about the sale of cigarettes, the old man identifies the bullies as the buyers. Before the police could catch them, they managed to flee from the scene. The old man is arrested, and to avoid the same fate, the boys dig the ground and bury the cigarettes there. The next day, Sung Tae addresses the class and threatens them, saying if anyone talks to the teacher, he will kill them. The class starts, and Dogi says good morning to everyone, but nobody answers him. Seeing Sung Tae is playing games, Dogi requests him not to do that in the classroom. However, Sung Tae keeps provoking Dogi, even frustrating him so he can show violence. Hak-soo keeps recording in order to catch the perfect moment when Dogi's rage gets out of control. It will help them get rid of Dogi easily. Realizing Sung Tae's game, Dogi announces that they won't study today but will be watching some videos. To everyone's shock, Dogi plays the video of the 3 bullies burying marijuana on the mountain. As the trio was shocked to see the video, Dogi turns off the TV, saying it was a mistake. After the school ends, the bullies ask Dogi about the video. Dogi responds that he went to the mountain to capture the beautiful view and found them burying the cigarette. So, he videotaped them. The boys keep explaining that they don't smoke weed. Dogi keeps playing along and assures them he won't reveal their secret to anyone. Later, the bullies head to the mountain and begin digging the ground, but they cannot find weed anywhere. At that moment, Sung Tae receives a call from Dogi, who reveals that he handed the weed to the police. He asserts his responsibility as a citizen, yet, Dogi reassures Sung Tae that he didn't disclose any information regarding him. As Dogi persistently taunts Sung Tae with a mix of sweetness and underlying negativity, Sung Tae finds himself feeling helpless in the face of the situation. The next day, Dogi continues to irritate Sung Tae, demanding that he bring food for him. When Sung Tae declines, Dogi uses the previous weed incident as leverage, threatening to expose him if he doesn't comply. Fearing the consequences, Sung Tae reluctantly does whatever Dogi asks. To add to Sung Tae's frustration, Dogi even instructs him to keep the change for himself, further fueling his anger. The trio searches on the internet and finds that having weed is illegal, and they can end up in jail for 5 years. Scared to spend their lives in prison, Sung Tae calls Dogi and gives him death threats. As the trio returns home, they are shocked to see Dogi playing games with Sung Tae's father. Sung Tae is scared about getting exposed in front of his father. Later, Dogi enters Sung Tae's room and makes himself comfortable on the bed. He then asks the trio for money, 1.5 million each. If they tell anyone about it, Dogi threatens to inform the cops about the weed possession. Sung Tae agrees to fulfill his demand, but he puts a condition: he will decide date and time. After Dogi leaves, Sung Tae calls someone for help. In the afternoon, Dogi finds Young Min and encourages him to return to school starting next week. He's worried that skipping might become a habit that's hard to break. As a gesture of care, Dogi offers Young Min some food. Afterwards, Young Min assists his mother in closing up their shop. When asked about the food, Young Min discloses that his homeroom teacher was a generous giver. On their journey home, Young Min's mother affectionately holds his hand, expressing her unwavering love for her son. The following day, Dogi arrives at the school's rooftop and discovers a swarm of men dressed in black suits taking over the area. As he proceeds to get the money, Goen asks if they should set it up, to which Dogi says yes. A clash erupts between Dogi and the men. With agility, Dogi evades each assailant, targeting their leader directly. Witnessing their leader under attack, the men retaliate. However, they prove no match for Dogi's combat skills. While Dogi is engrossed in combat, Sung Tae attempts a sneak attack from behind. However, when Dogi senses the impending attack, Sung Tae freezes, unable to make a move. Dogi continues to showcase his extraordinary prowess, swiftly neutralizing every thug in his path. When a thug tries to attack him with a flower pot, Dogi swiftly leaps, shattering the pot in midair. The trio stands stunned by Dogi's unforeseen abilities. After clearing the area of the men, Dogi shifts his focus to Sung Tae. As Dogi proceeds towards him, Sung Tae takes a step back. However, soon there is no place for him to move back. Dogi tells him that he cannot gather the courage to jump, but still, he pushes the people and hurts them. With that said, Dogi kicks him, sending Sung-tae off the rooftop. As he focuses his attention on the other boys, they begin apologizing, begging Dogi to spare their lives. Because of the fear, they even pee their pants. When Dogi brings up Youngmin's name, the duo was stunned. The next thing we know, they surrender themselves to the police, telling the officer how they bullied their friends. They urge the officer to lock them up as they don't want to end up like Sung-tae. It seems like Dogi has taught them a good lesson, and they won't threaten, bully or beat anyone ever again. Later, Dogi enters a bakery shop where he has kept someone. That someone is none other than Sung-tae. It turns out that when Goen asks Dogi to set something up, she was talking about the giant inflatable bed. After he said yes, two of the team members, Kyung-gu and Jin-ian, inflated the bed. When Seang-tae fell, he landed straight on the bed. Because of the fear, he went unconscious. Dogi contacts the gangster Sung-tae, whom he encountered on the rooftop, and lets him have a conversation with Sung-tae. Instead of assistance, the man issues a warning, advising Sung-tae not to contact him again and to listen to his teacher. Sung-tae's shock deepens upon hearing Youngmin's name. Dogi informs him that everything he eats is on Youngmin, but anything he can't finish, he'll have to pay for. Furthermore, each pastry will cost him an amount equal to compensating Youngmin for all the physical and emotional harm he caused. Sung-tae apologizes, saying that he doesn't have any money. This is when Dogi reveals that he has found a job for him. By working there, Sung-tae can quickly settle his debts. Then, Dogi warns Sung-tae that if he tries to escape, he'll catch him and make him cough up 10 times more. Confused about his situation, Sung-tae receives advice from Dogi to recall the emotions of the students he once bullied. What he's going through now is payback. To mark this fresh start, Dogi grabs a cake, lights it, and celebrates Sung-tae's new beginning. Afterwards, Dogi meets Youngmin, handing him the receipt for the deluxe taxi service. When Youngmin expresses concern over the high cost, Dogi advises him to pay whatever he can monthly. It will make him even stronger. Grateful for Dogi's guidance, Youngmin thanks him and exits the taxi. Meanwhile, Sung-chul approaches Youngmin's mother, revealing that his organization has awarded Youngmin a scholarship. Upon graduation and college entry, the firm will cover his fees and expenses. Overwhelmed with emotion, Youngmin's mother repeatedly thanks Sung-chul for this generous scholarship. With Youngmin's life returning to normal and a brighter future ahead, he returns to school. In his taxi, Dogi keeps an eye out, ensuring everything's okay. Just like that, the deluxe taxi keeps playing a crucial role in helping people seek revenge and reclaim their lives. Meanwhile, we see a woman named Maria crying. She is injured, and it seems like she is ready to end her life. As she stands on the other side of the railing, her slipper falls into the river, scaring her even more. She keeps crying while saying that she doesn't want to die. Just then, her eyes are laid on the deluxe taxi service ad, saying, "Don't die, take revenge." Maria calls the number, and Dogi arrives to pick her up soon. Maria asks him where they are going, to which Dogi responds that they are going to take revenge. He then turns on the audio recorder and asks Maria what has happened to her. A flashback shows that Maria is an orphan and is intellectually disabled. It means she is 18 years old, but her mental age is around 1st to 2nd grade. As she was old enough to find a job, she bid farewell to her friends who had pitched in to buy a goodbye gift for her. Soon, a social worker picks her up from the church and informs her about her new job. She will be working in a factory and dealing with computer work. Maria is really excited as she always dreamed about doing a job to buy gifts for her friends. Approaching there, she signed a contract that she didn't read. At first, everything went well. Even the manager, Jong-gun, was very polite and understanding with her. Maria even shared with him how skilled she was in Excel. After the meeting ended, the social worker left the factory. Jong-gun showed Maria around, and after the tour, ordered her to descale the fish. Confused, Maria said that her work is related to computers. Still polite, Jong-gun assured her that he would give her computer work after that. However, Maria denied, saying that she was afraid of fish. Just then, the factory owner, Ju-chan, arrived. Upon hearing that Maria wasn't ready to work, he grabbed her from hair and submerged her head in the fish water. He then asked her if she was still afraid of fish. He then slapped Maria really hard, knocking her to the ground. He doesn't stop there. He begins hitting Maria with random objects. They intensify their torture by putting Maria in a drum with a freezing temperature. To decrease the temperature further, Ju-chan adds a bunch of salt, and then closes the lid again with a sack. What they did next was even more horrifying. They opened the drum after a while and poured hot water on Maria, waking her up. After enduring so much torture, Maria agreed to work for Ju-chan. She would cry while describing the fish. One night, Maria tried to escape, and she did succeed. She found a police officer on her way and urged for help. The police officer turned out to be corrupt, as he took her back to Ju-chan's factory, where she was tortured again. They put her in the lid, while the police officer and Ju-chan had dinner together. Instead of helping the girl, the police officer splashed water on her already freezing body. He told her not to run away but to consider the factory as her home and work there without creating trouble. Adding to the distress, he made it clear he wouldn't rescue her in the future. To make matters worse, Jong-gun later called Maria into another room and subjected her to sexual assault. This horrifying experience led Maria to attempt suicide. After being taken to the hospital, she managed to escape and headed to a bridge with the intention of taking her own life once again. In the present day, Dogi drops her off at the game station and rides away. With the instructions in her hand, Maria begins playing the game. The screen shows if she wants to take revenge on the manager and the boss. Maria presses the revenge button, allowing all the team members to get the message that there is a mission ahead. They immediately leave their work and arrive at the underground area to discuss the mission. Kyung-gu requests Goen to change their pager as it seems old, and he wants to switch to a smartphone. However, Goen responds that smartphones are a bit risky, so they must stick to the pager. Soon, the team gathers to listen to Maria's story. Sung-chul pins the photographs of Ju-chan and Jong-gun to the board. He tells the team how the duo is known as a hard-working businessman in the community. They are helped by the police officer. That's why it is easier for them to cover up their crimes. Hearing her heart-wrenching story, Goen decides that they should immediately expose those businessmen. Other team members also agree with her, and just like that, another mission begins. Dogi hops into his taxi, sneaking out from the underground building. Meanwhile, Goen, Kyung-gu, and Jin-Ian prep their van, turning it into a food spot to infiltrate the factory. Dogi also scopes out the factory, checking its ins and outs. Later that night, when Ju-chan and Jung-gun get hungry, they grab a pamphlet of the chicken spot that Kyung-gu and Jin-Ian gave them earlier. Jong-gun thanks for the fast delivery, unaware that he has fallen right into their trap. Little do they know, the deluxe service team has spiked the food with sleeping powder. As a result, Dogi scales the factory wall and slips inside. Thanks to the sedative-laced chicken, Ju-chan and Jong-gun are peacefully asleep. With precision, Dogi inserts a USB into Jong-gun's phone, granting Goen access to all the crucial data. Dogi finds a safe in one of the rooms and asks for Goen's help to unlock it. With the data recovered from the phone, Goen manages to come up with the code. Dogi enters the code but finds nothing in the safe. Returning to the living area, Dogi picks up Jong-gun's phone only to find wrongly taken photographs of Maria. The discovery fuels Dogi's desire for revenge on her behalf even more. The next day, Dogi takes on the guise of a customer, entering the factory grounds. While he is exploring, Ju-chan intercepts him and inquires about his arrival. Sporting an innocent smile, Dogi claims to be in search of seafood. Guiding him to his office, Ju-chan offers coffee. Soon, Jong-gun joins, and they talk business. In the conversation, Dogi expresses interest in purchasing 50 drums of seafood. To prove his credibility, he unveils his briefcase, displaying the money at his disposal. Spotting the cash, the greed of the duo kicks in, prompting them to propose a deal. For 50 drums in 2 days, Dogi must make a 50% advance payment. Accepting the terms, Dogi seals the agreement with a signature. Unaware of the impending twist, Ju-chan and Jong-gun enthusiastically confirm the order. Unfortunately, half of the drums turn out to be infested with maggots. Ju-chan assigns Jong-gun the task of sorting and dispatching these tainted drums to schools and the military. Furthermore, it's revealed that they're importing this fish internationally, rebranding it domestically with a Made in Korea label to inflate profits. Kyung-gu and Jin-Ian manage to hear their conversation, allowing them to learn about their deceit. Later on, Jong-gun vents to the insurance worker, Jung-suk, about Maria. He insists on bringing someone less likely to escape. His comments displease Jung-suk, and she advises Jong-gun not to be overly selective. Ju-chan steps in, reminding her that if she's claiming 15% of their profits, she needs to execute her role efficiently. During their discussion about Maria, Jung-suk disclosed that Maria had contacted her once before and that she might contact her again. She asserts that as soon as she pinpoints Maria's whereabouts, she'll inform Ju-chan. Additionally, Even in the event of Maria's demise, there's a 400 million insurance policy with Ju-chan as the beneficiary. In both scenarios, they stand to benefit. Unknown to them, their entire conversation is overheard by the deluxe service team, courtesy of the bug discreetly installed by Dogi. Goen reveals that Jung-suk has enrolled Maria in 10 insurance programs. Half of her monthly wage was used to pay her plans. Maria wasn't aware of this as she never got paid. Pretending to be a customer, Sung-chul visits the insurance company and asks to meet Jung-suk. After hearing about the insurance plans, Sung-chul leaves the office, saying that he will visit again. As Jung-suk is waiting for a taxi outside the office, Sung-chul offers her a ride. When asked if he's decided on the insurance, Sung-chul suggests discussing it during the ride as he's in a hurry. Agreeing, Jung-suk enters the car, only for Kyung-gu to render her unconscious with a taser. They tape her mouth and disguise her with a hat to conceal her identity. Upon waking up, Jung-suk pleads for her life, insisting she's merely a social worker. Sung-chul calmly informs her they're taking her to the factory, promising decent treatment. Despite her protests, Kyung-gu incapacitates her once more with the taser as she continues to scream. Meanwhile, Jong-gun lines up 50 barrels of seafood. However, on his way to the factory, a masked man, likely Dogi, intercepts him. Armed with a wrench from the truck, Jong-gun engages in a showdown with Dogi. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worse as Dogi sends him flying through the air, crashing back down with a nasty neck injury. With the shipment still in limbo, Dogi drops a bombshell on the greedy duo. He places another order for 20 barrels, warning that this time if they miss the deadline, he will hit them with a double penalty for breaching the contract. Once Ju-chan seals the deal, Dogi makes his exit. Ju-chan dials Officer Kim, who has discovered Maria's whereabouts. As Officer Kim rushes, Dogi follows him discreetly. He fixes a metal frame to the front of his taxi and rams it into Officer Kim's car, maneuvering the frame into the vehicle and forcing it off course. With a twist of the steering wheel, Officer Kim's car catapults into the air, crashing down. Dogi swiftly retrieves a black box from the officer's vehicle and vanishes from the scene. Meanwhile, Maria joins Sung-chul's taxi company, taking on computer tasks. Goen acknowledges Maria's skills in Excel. During their conversation, Maria takes a pill. When asked, she discloses that Jung-gun gave her the pills for strength. Curious about the pills' purpose, Goen takes them for examination. Subsequently, she contacts Dogi, revealing that Jung-gun had been giving Maria birth control pills. Dogi's making a move to swipe those drums again. On Jung-gun's way back to the factory, Dogi blocks his path. But this time, Jung-gun isn't alone. He's brought back up. It turns into a scuffle between Dogi and the guys. Dogi is pretty slick with his kicks and punches, gaining the upper hand. Jung-gun tries to attack, but Dogi stops him and keeps landing punches until Jung-gun hits the ground. While all this is happening, Ju-chan calls Jung-gun but has no luck. Dogi's got Jung-gun and tied him to a pole. At first, Jung-gun yells for help, but then it sinks in that Dogi's the one behind this mess. Meanwhile, Dogi gets a call from Ju-chan, who mentions the guy he sent to fetch the drums has gone missing. He promises Dogi 70 drums by tomorrow. Dogi warns if he doesn't get them, there'll be a price to pay. With that, he hangs up, leaving Ju-chan worried sick. To dodge the penalty, Ju-chan hits the internet to hunt down some seafood drums, but with Goen keeping an eye on his search history, she steps in, pretending to be a seller and takes the order. Kyung-gu and Jin play the role of delivery guys, dropping off the drums at Ju-chan's factory. They can't resist poking fun at Ju-chan, wondering why a seafood factory needs to buy seafood from other sellers. Once the duo splits, Ju-chan heads back into the factory, only to bump into Dogi. Curious, Ju-chan asks who he is, and Dogi coolly declares himself as their seafood thief. A brawl breaks out between the two. Armed with a stick, Ju-chan tries to strike. However, Dogi outmuscles him, lifting and slamming him against the wall. Ju-chan attempts a comeback, but Dogi proves too formidable. In the heat of the clash, Dogi's mask slips, exposing his identity to Ju-chan. Infuriated, Ju-chan lashes out, labeling Dogi a scumbag and launching an attack. Dodging the blows, Dogi delivers a powerful punch, sending Ju-chan crashing to the floor. In a tense moment, Dogi questions Ju-chan's morality, calling him out for exploiting people with disabilities. He points out how Ju-chan makes them work like dogs and assaults him daily. With Ju-chan's face bloodied, Dogi seizes him by the hair and submerges his head in water, mirroring the cruel act Ju-chan once inflicted on Maria. He then kicks him out of the factory and locks him up in the drum. he is being treated just like he treated others. With Ju-chan and Jung-gun out of the picture, the team steps up to determine the company's future. Sung-chul proposes a plan where the company's earnings directly benefit disabled employees. Turns out, Ju-chan had manipulated things and registered the company under a disabled worker's name, making it simpler for Sung-chul to transition ownership to the employees with disabilities. To cover the taxi fare, the team sells the drums and manages to gather the necessary funds. As the mission wraps up, Maria receives a heartwarming surprise from her orphanage friends. They have the toys she always wanted to buy for them. Stepping outside the factory, she spots a deluxe taxi driving away, revealing Dogi's kind gesture. He's the one who bought the gifts for the kids.